The Forum at 8 with Xolani Gwala.
It is now 8 minutes after 8. Very good morning indeed, and a warm welcome to the Forum at 8 here on SAfm, South Africa's news and information leader. Well, today, picking up on the ongoing story, the ongoing saga in Limpopo. You may have heard that a little earlier on this week, Wits University Professor Mary Metcalf released her report. She was asked to look into, verify, actually, that's the assignment. She was asked to verify the delivery of textbooks at schools in Limpopo. But straight afterwards then, Section 27 asked for, at least called for, the resignation, if not the firing, of the MEC for Education in that province, MEC Masemula. Yesterday, if you were with us here on the forum, we spoke to a number of prominent South Africans. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, we also spoke to Mosibudu Mangena, Andrew Mlangeni, who were celebrating President Nelson Mandela's birthday. But in the process, each one of them actually spoke about these matters, and we thought perhaps we'll start off by reflecting on what these leaders were saying before we actually even get to what we'll be talking about today. Firstly, let's tell you what Archbishop Desmond Tutu had to say on this matter.
We are aware in our heart of hearts that this is not what we should be doing. We should not be in a situation where in the third term of the year, abantwana bethu abakafumani textbooks. It can't be that we don't have people who can provide ezo zinto. Toho, please, man, let us old people go to our graves smiling.
As former Azanian People's Organization's President Dr. Mosibudu Mangena also weighing in on that issue.
Our departure from those values is getting worse and worse, murdering one another for positions. We will not deliver books for children. I don't think we can deliver the books. I think we won't deliver the books. And remember his love for children, his dedication to the well-being of children in our country. And that we, for 8 months, we won't deliver the books because we won't, not because we can't. It is hard to believe that we are a country of people who cannot deliver books to children into their schools for eight months.
Okay. And also, Andrew Mlangeni had some strong views on this matter.
His heart must be bleeding. His heart must be bleeding when he sees these things happening. And he must be saying to himself, was it worthwhile? Was it necessary for us to have gone into what we did? What is really necessary? Is this what we are fighting for? His heart must be bleeding as much as some of our hearts are bleeding about what we are seeing today. It's terrible. It's horrific. It's disturbing. It's saddening. And I think that's how Madiba feels about some of these things.
Rivonia trialist and Robben Island prisoner Andrew Mlangeni talking to me yesterday on the forum. All right, then, let's talk about these matters. Here with me in studio, Mark Haywood, Executive Director of Section 27. Good morning to you, Mark.
Good morning.
Nice seeing you again. Thank you very much. In our Limpopo studios in Polokwane, we're joined by Pat Khumo. He is the spokesperson for the Education Department in the province. Mr. Khumo, hello.
Good morning, Xolani, and good morning to the listeners.
Thank you very much. On the line also, Roni Mrwasetla. He is SATU's provincial chairperson. We are unable to get through to him at the moment. We were putting the call through. Let me start with Mr. Haywood, because during the week you called for the axing of the MEC in Limpopo. You said that something must be done because the department, you characterized it as rotten, ridden with corruption, incapable of meeting its constitutional obligations to learners. Tell us about that.
Well, I mean, first of all, let me say, Xolani, that unfortunate though it may be, I have to restate a call that MEC Masemola should resign, and if he doesn't resign, he should be fired, and he should be fired speedily. The situation in the schools in Limpopo fits with what Andrew Mlangeni said. It is horrific, it is disturbing. A lot of the focus has been on textbooks, and I think the whole country now knows that it's 6 months into the year and grades 1, 2, 3 and 10 didn't get their new curricular textbooks, and that still many schools don't have textbooks. That's what the Metcalf report showed. But, you know, the textbook story is not the end of the problems that face learners and teachers in Limpopo schools. I visited there a few weeks ago and only went to a handful of schools, admittedly, but I looked at the toilets, for example, in the schools, and you wouldn't want your child to use those toilets. The toilets are like 2 toilets for 500 children. If there are toilets, the toilets are often full and stinking, and it's horrible for kids to go into there. So there's issues of toilets. If you talk to the teachers and the principals, they'll tell you that for the last year they haven't received what's known as the norms and standards budget for their schools. So they're having to take money out of their own pockets to buy chalk and to buy cleaning materials and to buy photocopy paper. If you talk to the teachers tell you we don't have enough teachers. We're teaching 60 kids. We've been temporary teachers for 10 years, etc. So it is horrific. But what I would like to say, though, is, again, in keeping with what Archbishop Tutu said, is that what's happened in Limpopo shows the worst, but it also shows you the best, because there are many principals and teachers in Limpopo who are sacrificing, who are holding things together, who are still getting learners and children through exams and with good marks because of their personal sacrifice and commitment to this country. And I think soon we have to deal with the bad, but start talking up the good. We somehow, in this battle between good and bad that's going on in our country, the good must surface, and some of these gangsters who have ruined education and so on must be pushed out so that good people can deliver the promise.
Mr. Khomo, let me go to you then. Firstly, ask you whether, as the department, do you take responsibility for the mess that is out there that everyone knows about?
No, thanks, Xolani. The issue of the delivery of textbook, I think we have a history around that. We had this is the third administrator in the province, and we have been under Section 101B since the 5th of December 2011, and therefore the responsibility of ordering this batch of books and delivering them rested with the powers that be in terms of the Section 101B.
Okay, just clarify for us, who are the powers that be?
I'm just saying in terms of Section 100B, we are under administration, and therefore we have an administrator in the province.
All right, but let me be clear. You say that the responsibility for the issue of textbooks at the moment rests with the national minister. That is what we are saying. But the history around this particular textbook is that we have, in several instances, said last year around March, April, when the MEC delivered his budget speech, indicated that the issue of the textbooks and money around certain tasks would be compromised in terms of dealing with the budget for employee remuneration. And since then, we have been communicating both with the provincial treasury. We have communicated with the National Department of Education, indicating what might be the case as we move towards the December. Again, I'm going to try and ask you to just differentiate issues for us. Decipher issues so that we are able to follow you. One, the textbook issue resides with the national minister. So if there's anyone to be fired, it should be the national minister. Is that what you say? No,
I'm saying the professor's report was based on where were the books on the 27th of June this year, and the processes of delivering those books and ordering those particular books, which were to be at the schools on the 27th of June, rested with the National Department of Education in terms of the administration.
In as far as that is concerned, do you take absolutely no responsibility as the provincial government?
I'm not saying we're not taking responsibility. I'm just saying that our responsibility was on the ordering of books last year,
and you didn't.
By the September.
And you didn't.
That is a factual matter now.
So you didn't order the books when you were supposed to?
Correct.
But why then are you saying you're not responsible?
No. There are two matters on the table. There is this matter which was Professor Mary McCullough was dealing with on why books were not delivered on that day, and the ordering of books after we have been put under administration. You see, now after we've been put under administration, the processes of delivering, procuring, and all other matters around books did not rest with us. That is what we are saying.
All right, maybe Mark understands the issues.
Well, I think first thing I'd say is that, again, unfortunately, Mr. Khomo is misleading you and misleading listeners, because the story isn't quite what he pretends that it is. The problem with the delivery of textbooks actually doesn't start in December of this year. There's been an ongoing problem of delivery of textbooks. I mean, Professor Metcalf found still boxes of textbooks in warehouses that should have been delivered to schools last year. She found in a sample of 400 schools that 8% of schools reported not having received textbooks at all in recent years. And the issue of the current textbooks for the 2012 year actually begins in the middle, well, probably 2 years ago, with the tender that was awarded to EduSolutions against the advice of the then acting chief financial officer in the department. And then it links to the mismanagement of the budget, so that MEC Masemola could claim in the middle of last year that they'd spent all the money and there was no money to procure textbooks for this year. Now, how can an education department that has a budget this year of 22 billion rand and whose core function has to be to put textbooks on learners' desks so that they can study and so that they can achieve, say, we've run out of money, there's no money for textbooks? So where did that 22 billion rand actually go to? You know, that is one of the questions that has to be asked. Now, I know the answers to that, but perhaps Mr. Khomo might enlighten us as well. But the other thing is, it's not good enough to say national blames province, province blames national. They both have responsibilities. I think that, we think that the National Treasury, the National Department, when it took over the province correctly in December of last year, should have prioritized the purchase of textbooks. There's no excuse for the National Minister and for the National Department to have left it for 6 or 7 months. But the responsibility doesn't just rest with them. It rests with them together with the Provincial Department. And Xolani, one of the things we've been arguing is that, you know, a section of the Constitution was used to take over Limpopo, Section 101B. And we keep on saying to the National Minister of Education and the National Minister of Health that when you exercise that power, when the Cabinet exercises that power, it assumes a power to take over everything that needs to be taken over in a province in order to deliver core services. And textbooks are core services.
Let me go back to Mr. Khomo again.
Yeah, let's clarify something which Mr. Haywood is insinuating there. Look, we have said in 2007, 2008, around that area, there was this massive injection in the compensation of employees in terms of the OSD. And since then, we have been running on an overdraft in terms of payment of employees. We have indicated that...
When was this? When was this OSD?
It was around 2007, 2008, around that time. Now, that collective agreement put into the pockets of educators a certain amount of money, which then made our budget to go overdraft. And we have been on overdraft then until in 2010, 2011, the budget. The Treasury said we cannot continue with this overdraft. We have to budget for fully for the compensation of employees. But we have noted then that this would therefore lead in the cutting of certain programs in the department, and we couldn't risk the issue of the under budgeting of employees, which could even have led to industrial actions and so on. And we continued hoping that the Treasury will come to the rescue and make sure that this amount is there for budget for books. So therefore,
so you cut down on books instead?
Books and all other several issues which are priorities in the department.
What are other several issues?
Others are the issue of the infrastructure, like you have indicated. Our province is rural. Our province has a 20-year backlog in terms of infrastructure.
But OSD, you see, what I don't understand, and this has come up, OSD was a national issue.
Correct. Now,
OSD affected all provinces. Why did OSD affect books in Limpopo only?
No, we have said that in Limpopo, apparently money was not injected for OSD, which something...
Money was not... Well, that issue was raised in other provinces as well.
No, I'm saying it's a matter which within our province is something which we have said to the national department. You will claim that you have put money for your OSD in Limpopo, but we cannot locate that money.
Oh, okay.
Hence
So you couldn't locate the money in Limpopo. The money went missing somewhere in Limpopo.
That is something which is subjected to further investigation. What might have happened?
All right, but let me go back to the issue of the books that apparently have been lying in warehouses for over 2 years.
No. I think Kolani, we don't know where that report comes from.
It comes from the Metcalf.
There's a picture in the Metcalf report.
We saw the report. We have said books were seen in a warehouse in Zaneni around Devombeni, our EMPC center there, and we have said these books are our books. These books, we have ordered them for a period of 3 years. Now they are from grade 3, 6, and 9. When because they are workbooks, every year we supply them to schools and as they need and require them. As we conduct our own workshops and so on, we use that book. So
okay, so you acknowledge that there have been books in warehouses that have been lying there for over 2 years. No,
we are not saying they have been there. They are there, which we are using yearly. So we cannot. If this year, Kolani, you have to issue workbooks for grade 3, you still have to issue them workbooks next year. Therefore, you cannot disperse of all the books in our warehouses.
Let me see if Mark understands.
Well, I don't understand because, and I think it's something that really needs to be investigated, what Mr. Homo is saying. The fact of the matter is that the curriculum is changing. So why you're keeping, for example, grade 6 and grade 9 workbooks in warehouses in 2012 when it's going to be a new curriculum in 2013 doesn't properly make sense. We also know that the purchasing process of the Department of Education is that each year they make new orders from the publishers, and those new orders are partly to cater for top-ups of existing grades. We've been told by them, and he's now contradicting himself, that a book is given a life of 3 years. So each year there's a process of topping up a certain number of books, allowing for attrition of some of the other books. So, finding books in warehouses stacked high, I mean, I would say millions and millions of rands of books in this one picture that's in the Metcalf report. It's just unacceptable, particularly when, as I've said, you go to these schools and they're starved. The children are starved of books. Some of them are sharing books. Some of them don't have books.
Magehu does not understand what I mean. There is a question of textbooks where we talk about top-ups where he refers to. I'm talking about workbooks is where children write in. And you cannot therefore use the same workbook this year which you have used last year. So you have to provide learners with workbooks where they have to work in those workbooks. Therefore, and the issue of the change of the syllabus. CAPS is not a new syllabus. We have said that several times. And I think it's a matter which everybody, including, people like...
but does it mean that the textbooks won't change when CAPS come in?
No, not the entire context in the text.
But some text will change.
Some text will change.
So it's possible that you're keeping in the warehouses books that will be irrelevant next year when CAPS come in.
No. We don't have textbooks in our warehouses. That is what I have to emphasize. We don't have textbooks. Look,
we have workbooks.
We have workbooks.
Okay, maybe semantics. I'm not sure about that. But I wanted to go back, and you know what? I've already got Zwelenzima Vavi on the line. Perhaps I should just get his quick view, because I want to go back to the issue of Edu Solutions and their role in all of this, Mr. Petrumo, as you understand it. But let me hear from Mr. Vavi first. Mr. Vavi, you spoke about this matter yesterday, and from what I heard you say this morning, you were saying that it's probably because children of the people that are administrators, the officials, don't go to these schools. If they went to these schools, they would understand exactly what's going on.
Exactly, and they would have done something about this crisis long time ago, and that includes myself and all the leadership, the top leadership of the trade unions, the top leadership of the civil society, the leadership of the government, and possibly some of the educators themselves. If their own kids were to go through what the kids have to contend with for 6 months, something drastic would have been done long time ago. And the fact that that gentleman there, Pat Homo, is sent there to come and defend the completely indefensible And the fact that nobody have taken responsibility, and by showing that they care by resigning, exactly shows that perhaps the victims will not be the high class in society who, when they speak, everybody listens. The victims are the most marginalized in our society. They come from the rural areas. They're coming from the poorest province. They're coming from a province completely ravaged by corruption. And because others who have done worse things than that are still enjoying their life of top class, and why should this go? And that's a basic mentality change that we have been asking that it must change. So we're insisting, Perpetua, that the MEC, and we don't care about his track record in struggle, but has to take responsibility, must resign. The Premier must take responsibility, must resign or be fired. The Minister of Basic Education must answer serious questions. For example, why, when they have intervened through Section 101B in December last year, but then in June, July, they will then claim that they don't know that books have not been delivered. The president must ask questions from her, and if she can't answer those questions to the satisfaction of the president, she should be shown the door as well.
All right, Mr. Vavi, I've got to thank you very much. I know you've got to go somewhere else, but I thank you for the comments. Ronim Rwasetla, also of SATU in the province. It's interesting because Mr. Vavi yesterday was asking about where was SATU throughout all of this, Ronnie?
Tolani and all the listeners, SATU was on top of this matter from the word go.
When was the word go?
Last year, late in November, we saw the red light coming our way, and we sent a dossier to the Limpopo Department of Education, which included the issue which we overheard that books for CAPS implementations has not been ordered. And before the department could respond to us, on the 5th of December, the department was put under administration. And it became a yo-yo from that time until now. Because when you go to the administrator will send you to the Limpopo Department of Education. When you go to Limpopo Department of Education, you will have to be sent back to the administrator. No wonder this confusion. But we have been trying at all costs. We have had several meetings, both with the administrator and with the Limpopo Department of Education. However, what we want to indicate now, Tolani, and to all the listeners is, we are in trouble. We are caught up in a quagmire, and it is learners who are paying the price. And at the end of the day, it will be teachers who will be blamed. Why learners have not performed in 2012, when they will be facing their exiting class in grade 12.
All right.
I think what we would say now is, it is true that there is confusion in the House, and they are complicating it with these multiple investigation teams for only one problem, and we do not know who will bring what kind of report and what kind of recommendation.
All right, Mr. Mrosetla, let me ask you just to hold the line because I need to go to the newsroom now. Hold the line for me, but I'll also open the lines, by the way, 0891 104 208, 0891 104 208. Send me an email, gwalax@sabc.co.za. It appears to me that the intervention is now, in a sense, used as an excuse here. Everyone's saying, well, no, go to those people who are now responsible for the province. It's not us anymore. What do you think about those issues? Send me a text message, 34701. 0891 104 208. Right, talking about the Limpopo Books saga. Well, it's such a massive story, just taking as little as we can. We'll be going to the lines in a moment. There's Olis in Pretoria, Funani in East London, Annette in Cape Town, Mike in Cape Town as well. But I need to get Mr. Khomo to respond here. I had Mr. Zwelinzima Vavi just before the news headlines, also Roni Mrosetla. Mr. Vavi saying this is an untenable position. You are defending the indefensible, that your MSc must go.
Look, immediately after this report was made public, that is the statement which was made by Mr. Howard, Section 27. But on what basis was that? because we also hear that there are reports which suggest corruption in the Department of Education. We don't have those reports. We know that there are people doing work here. All the agencies are doing work. We don't have those reports. We read in the newspapers some leaked papers which suggest that. We have said all along that any maladministration and wrongdoings on the part of anybody, once those reports are on the table, the MEC will act on that.
Mark Haywood will respond to you in a moment, but I'm getting so many emails, but here's one which I would like you, Mr. Kgomo, to respond, because it's directed at me. It says, please stop interrogating Mr. Kgomo. Please ask Matale and Masemola to come and answer these questions. I asked your MEC to come through. Where's your MEC today?
No, I think he had a prior engagement in terms of one of the task teams.
But there was a promise that your HOD is going to come, at least the person who makes decisions. Where's the HOD?
Unfortunately, this morning
but it's all unfortunate, isn't it?
No, I'm just saying the MEC had a prior arrangement, and that is why I never communicated that he would be available. I indicated even that yesterday that unfortunately the time of your request coincided with one of his engagement. He talked to you a day before yesterday. He was available. I made him available to answer for himself.
All right. Well, I mean, Mark, you wanted to respond?
Yeah, well, I think you're right. I mean, MEC Masemola must come and speak for himself, but he should probably resign first and then come and give you answers. But, Mr. Kgomo says, on what basis? They haven't seen the reports. Where are the allegations of corruption coming from? And they have the reports. They know about the allegations of corruption. I have in my possession 2 reports which were produced by Dr. Karodia before he was moved for the National Council of Provinces, detailing allegations of corruption. They claim that, for example, officials in the department spend R1 million per month on their cell phone bills. They claim that officials in the department spend a lot of time away from the office at so-called training workshops at expensive hotels. There's all sorts of allegations. There's allegations of corruption concerning EduSolutions. The former chief financial officer, Mr. Soli Shitangano, who tried to question the EduSolutions tender before it was signed and sealed, was fired and is fired to this day. So the suggestion that you don't know about corruption is just I can't understand it.
Just to be, I suppose, Mr. Kgomo, respond to that, because I mean, clearly there is information. There's all sorts of information that's needed here.
Mr. Karodia, Dr. Karodia, when he was here, presented a report to the NCOP. The report, even in the NCOP, the MEC and the HOD have said this report, let it have some facts to prove that indeed you are saying this 1 million. Because you see,
so they're contesting the factual nature of
correct,
the report.
and it has never been even put to the table to say this is the reason why I'm saying what he has said, because he has other things he has said. Is just that all senior managers in the Department of Education are unqualified. Where did he take that opinion from? Because it's not true. And therefore, we have said all this allegation you are putting on the table, let them be substantiated and let's talk about them. But even up to date, there is nothing. And the media continues to say there are reports, there are leaked information. This is the corruption. We have never seen those reports.
What about the whistleblower, Soli?
No. That the issue of the EduSolution, whether we are correct or not, I think it will come to its end when all the processes of the court and all these reports have come out, because these things about EduSolution, corrupt officials, and so on, there is no complete investigations to any effect.
But who should do this investigation? Surely, if people are raising these issues... No, wait a minute. If people are raising these issues, you as authorities should be investigating and following it up.
We have the SIU here. We have the Goboto investigators here. We have the Lutentas. They will complete the investigation and present. And at that time, would be able to speak to a conclusive investigation and therefore attend to whatever they've raised in that. Now, up to then, we are seeing all this allegation and all this so-called leaked reports in the newspaper. And unfortunately, people are reacting to that. And it's high time that in the circumstances like that, let's give investigation to conclude. Let's not hang people before we even say we have done wrong or not.
Okay, Mark is going to respond in a minute. But let me go to Mkolisi in Pretoria. Hello, Mkolisi.
Good morning, Kolani.
Hi, welcome.
Listeners and the guests. And 2 things for me, Chief. One, when the basic issue to me is that National, when they put actually this intervention in place, they fail to plan properly. Because one of the key principles of operations management is to ensure that when you introduce a new control, you do not paralyze the systems. They should have made the point that before they introduce this intervention, they are not going to actually end up paralyzing the whole system of delivering services, particularly textbook to the students actually of Limpopo. Secondly, we should not rule out the possibility of sabotage, either from the side of the service providers who are probably corrupt from Limpopo, or some of the officials from the Provincial Education Department of Limpopo. Then coming back to the Minister of Education, I think her capability really to manage the process of education, starting from the Eastern Cape to Limpopo, leaves a lot to be desired. I stop there, Tola.
Okay, Olisi in Pretoria, I thank you very much. Let's go to Annette in Cape Town. Hello, Annette.
Lani, I'm so glad to have an opportunity to speak. I've been working for the last 3 years in the rural Eastern Cape, in the former Transkei area. And I have to say that I think after years and years of trying to raise awareness of what is happening, this textbook saga has caused a tipping point. And to me, I welcome the fact that this ghastly story is being told, because it is only the tip of the iceberg. In the Eastern Cape, I can take you today to show you schools where books are the last of the worries. There isn't a child sitting on a chair. The child is sitting on an upturned brick all day today, last year, the year before, and into the future. There isn't a desk in front of this child. There is not a blackboard except for a broken fragment. There may be a teacher, but there also may not be a teacher. And the child, Mark is right, there are no toilets, there's no electricity, there's nothing. These schools, many of them, have not even been built by the education department. They've been built by NGOs and by impoverished communities themselves. So the principals, for instance, might not be in the school quite legitimately today because they've been called to the district office, which they are called to every single week. So they are out of the schools. I can take you to a school where there hasn't been a grade 1 teacher since May last year. And the principal is trying to do her best there, but she's not there every day. So when you drive around the areas that I'm talking about, you will see children in uniforms outside the buildings because they are not being taught. And when they are inside the buildings, the quality of what they are being taught is appalling. And the only difference between these children and the children who are getting a good education is that the children are poor.
All right. I thank you, Annette. Just over and above what Annette is saying, a lot of SMSs have come through as well. For instance, here's one. It says the textbooks problem is even worse in KZN. Frustrated parent KZN signing that SMS. Another one says the Limpopo debacle pales in comparison with the chaos in Eastern Cape schools. Absentee books is one of the things, but absentee teachers is another in the Eastern Cape, says another SMS. Of course, also another one from Chat in Cape Town, appalling and unforgivable. Our political leaders are failing us while they waste our tax money on luxuries for themselves. Mark in Cape Town saying, through all of this, where were the teachers in SATU? Or did the principals not notice the absence of books? Heads should roll, but probably won't. Another SMS, the call for the sacking of MEC is not only mischievous, but misguided. But it shows us that we are desperate. We all know that the national minister should be the one that's sacked. That's Piwo in KZN. What is happening in Limpopo is like Sunday picnic. Come to the Free State. You will see what the real corruption is, says another SMS. Mike in KZN, the entire education department should be fired immediately and replaced with people with at least half a brain. That's according to Mike in KZN. Mike, also another one, different Mike. We can't fire anybody in the department. Can we not at least hire Professor Mary Metcalf? At least she's honest. That's also an SMS that came through. I'm going to get my guest to respond, but let me quickly hear from, is it Phineas in Polokwane? Phineas, hello.
Hi, Colin, how are you?
I'm very well. Welcome.
All right, thank you. This is Phineas here. I just want to comment about Mr. Petkomo.
Yeah.
I'm actually very, very disappointed, the way he's going on about commenting, because the more you're trying to get the answers from him, he sounds more confused about the answer that he's supposed to give. So I just want to tell the people of South Africa that it's the government of ANC is the joke. And then if you come to Limpopo, for example, go to hospitals, the services are never there, and then all the machines are broken, and it's just a joke. I don't understand why this government is going on like this. And I just think Mr. Masemola must resign as well.
Okay, Phineas in Polokwane. Funani, East London, hello.
Yes, Tolani, quickly. We are told, if you read the story of Rome, that when Rome was burning in the 67 AD Great Fire of Rome, the Emperor Nero was playing a fiddle. I think this is what we see in this country today. Listen to the SMSs. People say in Limpopo, in Free State, the whole country, there is a great fire. And for how long are we going to clone Section 27 to be everywhere? Section 27 cannot keep up with this. So what Vavi is saying is quite correct. Heads must roll. But for me, from where I stand, the actual person that must be accountable is the president, because it's not only education, it's health, it's many other things. The president, like one of your callers saying, it doesn't really know what is happening in this country. The ANC and the president and everyone, they are taking us for a ride. I think Zuma must resign, ANC must go. Maybe in the meantime we can have Section 27 running the country until when are we electing? Until we remove the ANC actually.
Okay, that's Funani in East London. Mike is in Cape Town. Hello, Mike.
Hello, Scolani. I just want to pick up quickly on Valenzuela Abavi's point. Where has this guy been? Yes, of course, if the MPs and the ANC top dogs had to send their children to government schools, of course they would have fixed the schools. If the Minister of Police didn't have to go all around his house and had to live in Manenberg or Atlantis or Mitchell's Plain, he'd also suddenly sort out the police. And if our Minister of Health had to use a government hospital, I promise you, he'd quickly sort the hospitals out, because the ANC is completely out of touch with the people. And it's coming across in this message. And what I want to say is, I've said it before, and the previous Minister of Education, I think it was, obviously just laughed me off the phone. But, we need to take education away from the ANC. They need to perhaps manage, they can view it and manage it, but the administration needs to be taken into private hands. We have excellent schools, excellent people in this country. Mary Metcalf could head it up, and then we could run the education system. The ANC will then make the laws, which we will carry out, but it'll keep it out of government hands, because they are incapable of even telling us where the fault lies. We do not even know at the end of this program, I promise you, who's driving this bus.
All right, Mike in Cape Town. Thank you very much. Perhaps a point to pick up on, Mark. Mike is talking about who's driving this bus.
Well, you do wonder who's driving the education bus, because what your listeners have said about the state of schools all over the country is very, very true. And, in our constitution, children have a right to a basic education. They don't have a right tomorrow or next year. They have a right to a basic education today. It's an absolute right. And the minister and the government has the duty to deliver on that absolute right today. I think what we're hearing about and what we're describing is our country's foremost problem at this moment. And a plan must be put on the table that uses the best people in this country to fix the education system, not in 5 years, but in the next 6 months. Because what we're seeing is a betrayal of our children. It's a betrayal of our dreams. I would hate to be a child in a school today. I would hate to be a little boy or a little girl who gets up and thinks, can I use the toilet today? It's so stinking. Or a little girl who goes in and she knows that she's going to be sexually abused by a teacher and nobody's defending her. If we heard those voices, we would be the people who are having nightmares as well. And the other thing I want to say about the education crisis, Xolani, is that it's not an isolated crisis, because the crisis in education feeds into the crisis of the HIV epidemic, because this creates a generation of young people who are vulnerable, who lack education, who lack literacy, who lack autonomy. It feeds into the sexual violence crisis. It feeds into our economic crisis ultimately, because we're creating generations of youngsters who can't work in the modern economy, because at the age of 7 and 8, they don't have access to a computer. We looked at some of the curricula which is being taught to kids in schools in Limpopo. How can you understand about the World Wide Web and the internet if you're in a school that doesn't have an electricity and doesn't have a computer?
Gee. Mr. Khomo, and I'm going to take a break in a second and look at these emails that have been coming through here. But, for instance, Mark is talking about the Constitution and the prescripts and what it says. It calls upon the department to provide education. When, as administrators, when you sit in your meetings, how do you assess yourselves? Do you think you're doing what the Constitution wants you to? Do you brag and say, yeah, well, we're right on track?
Look, except this question of the delivery of textbooks, I think we are saying we've been doing well. We know that our province, and not only our province, is rural area. In fact, for us to reach at a certain school is very difficult. Now, for that to say there should have been an internet connection and all these web things at all our schools at this era. It's not only an education matter, it's an infrastructural matter of the whole country, because there are other areas which are very difficult to reach, both in terms of providing them with technology and all other aspects. It's not
so in
only
other words,
the issue of education.
In other words, other than what may, in your view, be a little textbook blip, you are doing all very well.
No, I'm not saying this is a little textbook weep. I'm not trying to say it is a little thing. I'm just saying we have this thing after almost all the years of improving our grade 12 results and all other aspects. This has come, and it has been a very bad lesson to us. It's something which we have committed to ourselves to say this thing should never happen again. We cannot undermine the voices of great leaders like Andrew Mlangen and Bishop Desmond Tutu and try to underplay these things. We understand that it has been a
but you are
problem.
underplaying it because you're defending it. You are saying it's not your responsibility. Part of really living up to then your responsibility is by standing up and saying we made a mistake where we did. Those of us who are responsible should then take the blame for it and maybe resign, and we'll continue. We'll improve the situation. Isn't that what you should be? Honorable thing to do.
Kolani, I've indicated the background around this textbook saga. And I have said, indeed, it should not have happened had books been ordered last year. That is what I've said. But I've said, in terms of what happened after we have been put under administration, that is something else. And we also said, in our statement, we have apologized to the people of Limpopo to say this has been a very sad moment, and it's something which we think we can pull through and go back to where we have been. We have been delivering books all the years. We have been doing all
except
the
for those that were seen by Mary Metcalf there in the
Look, I've explained what those books are, and
those were not delivered 2 years ago.
It is not the textbooks which should have been delivered.
All right, let me take a commercial break. I'll read the emails in a minute. Tabiso and Soweto, briefly for me, please. Good morning.
Sure, Colin. Look, I'm saying that what is happening in Limpopo is not acceptable, But I think I'm also happy that my Kevin is conceding that the problem is everywhere in South Africa. I think this issue must not be used as political point scoring, like people like Vuzulenze Mavavi, because of emphasizing of corruption in Limpopo and everything. We seem to be saying that everywhere else, in the Free State, Eastern Cape, and everywhere else, everything is okay. All I'm saying is Vavi must consider this organization, SADU and COSATU and ANC. They failed the masses, They failed us, and then they just need to go as a guy from the Eastern Cape has said.
Okay, Tabiso and Soweto, I thank you very much. Philip is in KZN. My last caller, hello.
Yes, Kolane. Kolane, condemning the point in the administration of Limpopo will never help this. In South Africa today, you have got crisis of authority because of the culture Jacob Zuma brought when he ascended to power. For example, you will actually be using Limpopo as a test case, but this problem of crisis of authority within the state machinery as a whole is not only limited to education. Okay. You go to our intelligence, national intelligence, crime intelligence, general intelligence, preaching because saying, no, we cannot allow people to use national intelligence for political point scoring.
Okay. Philip, in KZN, thank you. Some emails. Paul Lucas Matidze, what were you expecting from the basic education? It's called basic for a reason. They are saying you must be grateful if you even have a school, not to mention textbooks. Zuma must be recalled. Paul Lucas Matidze. Another one says, I'm worried about the silence of the parents, which is too loud for my ears. All these schools do have SGBs, but parents were silent or hiding behind these toothless SGBs. I call upon parents to take control of their children. Aupa Chasanyana in Sebokeng. Another one from Unati Mahlanyana. The National Treasury must take the blame in this saga of books. Contractual agreement with the suppliers for books were withheld. I think they should answer on the role they played in this institution. Unati on email. Another one from Vusi. I think we deserve this mess. We continue voting this corrupt lot into office since 1994. We get what we deserve. Regards, Vusi. On email. Lots of emails coming through. I've really got to get the last comments from my guests. Then starting with you, Mark.
Yeah, look, we've heard about the problems today, and what we've heard is very true. We've got to fix these problems. We've got to have a plan on the table. The Minister of Basic Education has to come to the country fast, instructed by the President, with a plan about how we're going to fix Limpopo, how we're going to fix the teacher crisis throughout the country, how we're going to solve all of these issues. And the only other thing I want to emphasize, correctly made by one of the listeners, is parents and learners are vital in this process as well. School governing bodies should be operational and functional, and should be a way in which parents take control over the kids' education.
Mr. Homo, I would like to know from you going forward, what will your department do in order to correct these wrongs?
No, I think for now we would just have to because we have to sit with the administrator, because we are under administration, and that is one thing which is important, that the HOD in the province now has no administrative powers.
So there's nothing you can do?
Well, up to now, we are just working together with the administrator to see. We are under the guidance of the administrator to make sure that we overcome this situation.
All right, so I'm not really getting what I needed, but anyway, perhaps, there's an SMS here that says we must continue debating this until the saga is over. In fact, it says, I was trying to look for it, it says, this is more serious than one can imagine. Please convene this debacle issue and debate on your radio show until it is resolved. We'll try and do as much as we possibly can in as far as this matter is concerned. I thank my guests for coming through though today. I thank you very much, Mark Haywood, Executive Director of Section 27. Thanks indeed for your time. Also would like to thank Pet Humo. He speaks on behalf of the Department of Basic Education in Limpopo.